The market was alive with noise, but not the good kind. It was not the sound of happy trade or cheerful laughter. It was the sound of cruel voices and mocking shouts. In the middle of that crowd, a tiny alien girl sat on the ground. Her skin was pale from hunger, her body thin like dry branches, her eyes were wide and empty, filled only with fear and exhaustion. She had been there for days, pushed aside like worthless trash. The shopkeepers threw rotten scraps near her, but never food she could eat. Children of aliens pointed at her, giggling. Some even tossed stones to see her flinch. The crowd loved her suffering as if it was a game. Her stomach growled loudly, but no one cared. Instead, a group of tall merchants laughed and said, "Listen, even her belly mocks her now." They slapped each other's backs and laughed harder. She pulled her knees close to her chest, her small frame shaking in the dusty street. The sun beat down, making the air hot. Flies circled her, landing on her cracked lips. She tried to wave them away but had no strength. Her throat was dry, her lips broken. She was close to fainting. Her mind whispered, "Maybe today I die, maybe that is better." And then, someone was watching. Among the noisy crowd, one pair of eyes did not laugh. A human man, tall and strange in this alien city, stood silently. He wore travel clothes, rough boots, and carried a heavy bag on his shoulder. Unlike the others, he did not spit or sneer. His face showed something rare here, concern. The girl noticed him, her weak eyes widened, but she quickly looked away. She had learned that looking at strangers only brought more pain. They might come closer only to kick or curse, yet the human did not leave. His eyes followed her, his hand resting on his bag. A vendor noticed his gaze and shouted, "Don't waste your eyes on that filth, human. She is nothing but dirt." The crowd roared in agreement. Another voice added, "She has not eaten for a week, but she still lives. Maybe she is part rat." More laughter echoed around. The girl's cheeks burned with shame. Tears formed, but she bit her lip. She had cried too many times before, and it only made them laugh louder. She curled smaller, wishing she could vanish. But the human stepped forward. His boots crushed the dust as he moved closer to her. The laughter grew. The market buzzed with disbelief. Why would a human go near her? He stopped in front of her, lowering his voice. "Why is no one helping her?" He asked the nearest vendor. The vendor spat on the ground. "Because she is not worth it. She is garbage. She deserves nothing." The girl froze. She expected the man to nod and walk away. That was what always happened. No one had ever spoken a word for her. No one had ever asked why. But instead, the human knelt down. His shadow covered her fragile body. She flinched, waiting for a strike. Instead, his hand reached into his bag and pulled out a metal flask. The sound of water inside made her heart race. He held it out to her, his voice calm, "Drink." Her fingers shook. She stared at the flask as if it was a cruel trick. Would he snatch it away once she touched it? Would he laugh like the rest? The crowd leaned closer. Some shouted, "Don't feed her. She is less than a dog." Others sneered, "What are you doing, human? You lower yourself by touching her." Her throat burned. Her mind screamed with thirst. Finally, with trembling hands, she reached for the flask. She expected him to pull it back, but he did not. Instead, he guided it gently into her grip. The water touched her lips, cool and real. She gasped as it slid down her throat. It felt like life returning. A sob escaped her chest as she drank more. Her tears mixed with the drops on her chin. The market fell silent for a moment. Shock spread across the faces of the crowd. A human giving water to filth? It was unthinkable. She stopped drinking and looked up at him. Her eyes, still wet with tears, met his steady gaze. For the first time in her life, someone's eyes held no cruelty, no laughter, no disgust. But questions filled her heart. Why? Why would a human care? The crowd began to whisper again, anger mixed with disbelief. "This is madness," one alien spat. "Does he not know she will only bring shame?" The human ignored them. His calm voice spoke again. "You are not dirt," he said, almost like a secret meant only for her. Her heart pounded. Was this real? Or another dream that hunger would soon steal away? As the crowd jeered louder, the girl's world began to change. Something dangerous, something powerful had been planted inside her. A seed of hope, fragile but alive. And hope, in a place like this, was more frightening than hunger. The market still buzzed after what had just happened. The laughter had turned to whispers. The human's simple act of giving water had shocked everyone. And the alien girl still could not believe it. Her lips were wet, her body trembling, and her eyes fixed on the flask she now clutched like treasure. The human stood slowly, his tall frame casting a long shadow over her. He looked around at the crowd, his eyes sharp, the noise lowered as if people feared his calm stare. But then the jeering started again. "Human, are you mad?" One merchant shouted. "She is not worth your kindness." Another spat. "Throw her back in the dirt where she belongs." The girl winced, expecting the man to obey. That was always the way. No one ever went against the crowd. Yet this human did not move away. His gaze returned to her, and she felt heat rise in her chest, not from shame, but from something unfamiliar. He crouched again, his voice low so only she could hear. "When did you last eat?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. She could not remember. Days blurred together. Nights were cold, and mornings brought only pain. Her throat tightened. She whispered, barely audible, "I don't know." The man nodded slowly, his eyes softened, and he reached into his bag once more. From inside, he pulled a small piece of bread, rough and simple. Yet to her, it looked like a miracle. The crowd roared with laughter again. "He feeds the rat," they cried. "Watch, she will bite his hand like an animal." Her hands trembled as he held the bread out. Her mind screamed warnings. "It's a trick, he'll take it away, he'll laugh too." But her body betrayed her hunger. Her fingers stretched out and touched the bread. He let it go into her palm. No tricks, no cruel laughter. She pulled it close, staring at it like a jewel. Then, slowly, she took a bite. The taste filled her mouth. Her tears spilled freely. She had not eaten real food in so long that her body shook with both joy and fear. The human watched her silently, his gaze steady, his lips pressed tight as if he was holding back anger. Not at her, but at the others who had let this happen. Suddenly a tall alien guard pushed through the crowd, his armor clanking. "Human," he barked. "What is the meaning of this?" His long spear pointed toward the girl. The girl gasped and dropped the bread, curling up as if ready to be beaten. The man stood tall, his voice calm but firm. "She is starving, I gave her food, what law have I broken?" The guard sneered, "The law of honor, the law of pride. She is trash, you lower yourself." The crowd cheered in agreement. Their mocking voices grew louder. "Yes, send him away. Send the girl to the pits." The human's eyes darkened, but his voice did not shake. "Then your honor is worth less than this child's life." The crowd gasped. Silence fell heavy. No one dared speak against a human's boldness. The guard growled, but he did not strike. He turned and muttered curses before disappearing into the crowd. The girl stared at the man in disbelief. No one had ever spoken like that for her. Not once, not ever. Her lips moved, her voice trembling. Why are you kind?" The human looked at her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Finally, he said, "Because you deserve more than this." Her chest tightened, her heart beat fast. The words felt impossible. Too heavy, too bright. Could they be true? The crowd continued to mutter. Some laughed, others spat. But a few whispered differently now. A few eyes watched the human with curiosity, with doubt, maybe even with respect. The girl sat frozen, still clutching the bread. She could not eat another bite. Her tears wouldn't stop. Her whole body shook as if the ground itself had shifted under her. The human extended his hand toward her again. The same hand that had given water, that had given bread. His voice was steady. "Come with me." Her breath caught. She looked at his hand, strong and open. It was madness to believe. She had been mocked too many times, tricked too many times. But his eyes held no cruelty. His eyes did not laugh. The crowd shouted, "Do not take her. Leave her to rot." Some even stepped forward to stop him, but the human did not lower his hand. Her heart pounded, her mind screamed to stay down, to stay safe in misery. But deep inside, something small, something fragile, wanted to reach, wanted to hope. Her thin fingers lifted, trembling. Her hand touched his. His grip was firm and gentle, pulling her up from the ground. The market exploded with noise. Some screamed in rage, others laughed louder. "The human takes Filth as his pet," they shouted. Yet the man did not release her hand. He led her away through the crowd, his back straight, his steps unshaken. The girl followed, her legs weak, her heart thundered with both fear and wonder. She looked once over her shoulder at the crowd, at the place where she had been nothing but dirt, and then she looked at the man, still holding her hand. She whispered to herself, almost too soft to hear, "Why me?" But inside, another voice whispered back, a voice she had not heard in years. "Maybe I am not nothing, maybe I can be more." The human's gaze had changed everything. The market noise faded behind them as the human led the girl away. His hand held hers firmly, not tight like a chain, but steady like a promise. The crowd still shouted in the distance, their laughter sharp, their insults cruel, but step by step, those voices grew smaller. The girl stumbled as she walked, her legs were weak from days without food. Each step felt heavy. She feared at any moment he might let go, that he might throw her back into the dirt. But his hand never loosened, his stride was slow, as if he knew she could not walk fast. Her heart pounded with fear. Why is he taking me? She thought. What does he want? She had seen others take broken ones like her before. None of those stories ended well. Chains, cages, cruel games. Those were always the endings. Finally, they stopped in the shadow of a broken wall at the edge of the market. The human turned and looked down at her. His eyes were calm, steady, and strangely gentle. "You cannot stay here," he said, his voice low, "Come with me." Her chest tightened, his words were simple, but to her, they felt like something unreal. No one had ever said come to her. No one had ever invited her anywhere. She was only ever pushed, kicked, or dragged. Her lips trembled. "Why?" she whispered. Her voice was barely a sound. The human did not answer right away. He looked back toward the market, watching the shadows moving in the distance. "Because if you stay, they will kill you," he finally said. His tone carried no drama, just plain truth. Her throat tightened. She already knew he was right. Every day she had waited for the moment her body would collapse and never rise again. The thought of leaving should have filled her with relief, yet fear pulled at her heart. She looked at his hand, still holding hers, and asked, where will you take me?" The human's gaze softened. "To a place where you can eat, where you can rest." His voice had no mockery, only a calm certainty. The girl shook her head weakly. "No one wants me. I am nothing." The words spilled from her mouth, bitter and raw. She had been told this so many times that she had begun to believe it. The man's jaw tightened, his eyes sharpened. "You are not nothing," he said. The words struck her like thunder, shaking her inside. Her breath caught. She wanted to believe, but belief was dangerous. Hope could break her heart worse than hunger. She whispered again, "It is a trick, it must be." The human sighed, yet his hand did not let go. Instead, he crouched so his eyes met hers directly. His voice was steady. "If I wanted to harm you, I could have done it already. If I wanted to laugh, I would have joined them." The truth in his words pressed against her chest. For the first time, she felt something different. His gaze carried weight, but not cruelty. It was heavy with honesty. Tears burned her eyes. She lowered her head. Her voice cracked. I don't know how to go with you." His hand squeezed hers gently. "You don't need to know, just walk." The invitation hung between them like a bridge, fragile yet strong. He was offering her something she had never been given before, a choice. The girl closed her eyes. Her breath came uneven. Behind her, the laughter of the market still rang. Those voices had always defined her life. Voices that called her filth, trash, worthless. But now, in front of her, was one voice, one hand, one chance. Slowly, she nodded. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "I will go." The human gave a small nod, not of triumph, but of understanding. He stood again, pulling her gently to her feet. She swayed but leaned into his steady grip. They walked out of the market, away from the dust and the jeering voices. The road ahead was quiet, empty, and strange. The girl's heart raced with every step. For the first time in years, she was leaving the place where her suffering had always been. But the fear did not vanish. Her thoughts twisted like sharp knives. What if he changes his mind? What if he hurts me later? What if this is another cruel game? She looked up at him as they walked. His face gave nothing away, but his steps were steady. His silence was not cold. It was calm. It felt like a wall between her and the chaos she had known. Her hand in his felt small and weak, but safe. She could not remember the last time she felt safe. If it was a lie, then it was the gentlest lie she had ever been given. As they walked farther, whispers followed, strangers stared, pointing at the strange sight. A human leading the starving girl by the hand. Some laughed, others shook their heads, a few looked away, ashamed. But he did not care. He kept walking, his back straight, his eyes forward. Each step was quiet defiance against the cruelty of the world. The girl dared to whisper again, her voice shaky. Why me? Why not leave me there? The human's voice was low, yet it cut through the heavy air. Because everyone else left you there. Her throat tightened, a tear slipped down her cheek. His words carried no pity, no softness, but truth, simple and unshakable. She clutched his hand tighter, her body still weak, her mind still doubting. But a spark burned inside her chest now. It was small, fragile, but alive. And for the first time, she stepped willingly beside him, not dragged, not forced, but by choice. The human had given her an invitation, and with trembling steps, she had accepted. The road stretched long and quiet as the human guided the girl away from the market. Her thin legs stumbled often, but his steady hand kept her from falling. They walked until the noise of the cruel crowd was nothing but an echo in her memory. The girl's body trembled with weakness. She could still taste the last crumb of bread he had given her. But her stomach ached for more. Hunger was like fire in her belly, sharp and endless. She was afraid to ask for food, afraid to anger him. After all, kindness was never free in her world. At last, he stopped before a small shelter built from wood and stone. Smoke curled faintly from a chimney. The place looked simple, worn by time, yet solid. It was not grand, but to her, it looked like a castle. The human opened the door and gestured for her to enter. She hesitated, her eyes wide. No one had ever invited her into a home before. She stepped inside slowly. Her bare feet touched the wooden floor, warmer than the cold ground she knew too well. The room smelled of firewood and cooked food. Her senses reeled. Her nose caught the scent of broth, bread, and herbs. The smell itself made her dizzy. She clutched her thin arms across her chest, afraid to believe it was real. The human set his bag down and walked toward the small kitchen area. Without a word, he pulled a pot from the fire, steam rising from it. He poured the warm broth into a clay bowl and placed it on the table. Then he took out bread, thick and soft, and fruit that glowed fresh and bright. The girl froze, staring at the table. Her throat tightened. She could not move closer. Her mind screamed warnings. It's a trick. It will be snatched away. You'll be beaten if you touch it. The man looked at her. His voice steady. Eat. Her knees shook. It is mine, she whispered. Her voice cracked like glass. He nodded once. It is yours. The word struck her harder than hunger. No one had ever given her anything without demand, without cruelty. She stepped forward slowly, as if the food might vanish. Her fingers touched the edge of the bread, half expecting his hand to slap hers away, but his hand never moved. She lifted the bread, warm and soft. The smell made her chest ache. She took a small bite, and her body shuddered. It was real. Her tears fell before she could stop them. The human said nothing. He simply sat across the table, watching, not with disgust or amusement, but with patience. She devoured the bread in hungry bites. Her hands shook so much that crumbs scattered across the table. She drank the broth, its warmth sliding down her throat, filling her with life. She ate the fruit last, sweet juice running down her chin. She wiped it quickly, ashamed, expecting him to laugh. But he did not laugh. He only placed another piece of bread before her. Her tears fell harder. She whispered, why do you do this? His eyes met hers, calm and steady. Because no one else would, he said simply. The words pierced her heart. She bowed her head, her shoulders shaking. She wanted to thank him, but her voice broke apart. All she could manage was a soft sob. He stood, walking to a small shelf. He pulled down a blanket, worn but warm, and placed it on the chair beside her. For when you sleep, he said. Her breath caught. Sleep? She had not slept safely in years. Her nights had been filled with cold, with fear of being attacked or dragged away. Now, the idea of sleeping in warmth was almost too much to believe. She stared at the blanket, then at him. I don't deserve this, she whispered. His jaw tightened, his eyes grew firm. No one deserves to starve. No one deserves to be treated like dirt. The words made her chest ache. Her tears spilled freely. She pressed her face into her hands. She did not understand why he was different. Why he cared when no one else ever had. The room was quiet except for the crackle of the fire. The human did not speak more. He gave her space to cry, to eat, to breathe. His silence was not cold. It was heavy with meaning. She finished the meal slowly, her body weak but filled for the first time in years. The ache in her stomach eased. Her head grew heavy. The warmth of food and fire pulled her towards sleep. But fear still clung to her heart. She looked at him again, whispering, "Will you send me away tomorrow?" He shook his head. "Not unless you want to leave." Her breath stopped. No one had ever given her choice. Not once in her life. She hugged the blanket to her chest, trembling. She whispered again, "Why me?" The human's eyes softened. His answer was quiet but firm. "Because I could not walk away." Her heart thudded painfully. His words were simple. Yet they carried a weight that made her believe, at least for a moment, that she was not worthless. She curled in the chair, clutching the blanket. The fire warmed her. Her body slowly gave in to exhaustion. Her eyelids dropped. For the first time in years, she felt safe enough to sleep. The human watched quietly, his face unreadable, yet in his silence, there was a promise. He would not let the cruelty of the world touch her again. And in that moment, the starving girl who had been mocked as filth took her first step into a life she never thought she would have. The girl sat by the fire, the blanket wrapped tightly around her thin body. Her stomach was warm with food, her hands still trembling as if her body could not believe it had eaten. The crackle of the flames filled the silence of the small room. It was the softest sound she had heard in years, not cruel laughter, not mocking voices, just the sound of peace. But peace was dangerous to her. Peace made her remember, made her hope. Hope was always punished. She pulled the blanket tighter, her eyes darting to the human. He sat near the fire as well, leaning back against the wall, his arms folded, his face calm. His eyes were closed as if he was resting. Her chest tightened. Fear whispered in her mind, "He will change soon. They all do. He gave you food only to make you weak. Now he will hurt you. Now he will show the truth." Her breathing quickened. She rose from the chair slowly, her bare feet quiet on the floor. She tried to move toward the corner, the darkest spot in the room. Her body had learned long ago that the corner was the safest place to curl up, to be small, to disappear. The human's eyes opened, catching her movement. She froze like a frightened animal, her heart hammered, waiting for him to shout, waiting for his hand to strike. But he only spoke softly, "The floor will be cold." Her lips trembled. I sleep in corners," she whispered. Her voice cracked, weak and unsure. The human studied her for a moment. His eyes did not mock. They only carried a quiet sadness. He gestured toward the blanket. "You don't need to hide here. Sleep by the fire, you'll be warmer." Her head shook quickly. "No, I don't. I don't trust it." Her voice broke into a sob. "They always say that, and then they laugh." Tears spilled from her eyes before she could stop them. She hated crying, hated showing weakness. It had always brought her more pain. But the fear inside her heart was stronger than her control. The human did not move closer. He did not touch her. His voice stayed calm. "I won't laugh. Not tonight, not ever." The words cut through her fear like light in the dark. But fear did not vanish easily. She hugged herself tighter, rocking slightly. Her mind screamed to run, but her legs refused to move. He looked at her again and then spread a second blanket on the floor near the fire. He lay down on it, turning his back to her. His voice came soft. "If you cannot trust me yet, then trust this. I'll sleep here. You'll see I mean no harm." Her breath caught. He was leaving her space. He was showing his back. No one ever did that. It was too vulnerable, too trusting. She crept closer to the fire, her eyes never leaving him. The flames flickered, painting his face in soft orange light. His eyes had closed again. His breathing slowed, steady and deep. She lowered herself slowly, sitting near the fire, her blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She kept staring at him, waiting for a sudden move, waiting for the cruel smile, but none came. Minutes turned to an hour. The fire popped softly. The room grew warmer. The weight of food in her stomach and the heat of the fire pulled at her heavy eyelids. Yet fear still whispered, Don't close your eyes, you'll wake up in chains. But exhaustion was stronger. Her body had nothing left. Slowly, against her will, her head dropped. Her eyes closed. Sleep pulled her down like a deep river. She dreamed of the market, of cruel voices calling her filth, of laughter stabbing her ears. She dreamed of hunger tearing her stomach, of cold rain soaking her bones. In her dream, the human appeared, his hand reaching toward her, his voice echoed, "Come with me." She woke suddenly, her heart racing. The fire was lower now, the room dim. Her eyes shot to the human. He still lay near the fire, his body still, his breathing slow. He had not moved, he had not touched her. Tears filled her eyes again. But this time they were different. They were not just from fear. They carried something else, something she had not dared to feel in years: safety. She curled tighter in the blanket, her body trembling. Her whisper filled the silence. "Why are you kind?" She thought he was asleep, but his voice came quiet and steady. "Because someone must be." Her chest tightened until it hurt. She pressed her face into the blanket, sobbing quietly. Her heart did not understand. Her mind could not believe. Yet the warmth of the fire, the weight of food, and the calm presence of the human made her feel something almost forgotten. For the first time, the night was not her enemy. It did not laugh. It did not starve her. It did not beat her. For the first time in years, she slept without chains in her dreams. But outside, in the streets beyond the little home, voices whispered. The market had not forgotten. Some had taken offense. Some had seen shame in what the human did. Shadows began to gather, plotting against him for daring to care for filth. And though the girl slept softly by the fire, danger was already creeping closer. Morning light crept through the cracks of the wooden walls. The fire had burned low, leaving only glowing embers. The girl stirred under her blanket, her body heavy with warmth. For the first time in years, she had slept without fear of being dragged away. But peace never lasted long. Her eyes opened, and the memory of the market returned. The laughter, the anger, the crowd calling her filth. Fear tightened in her chest. What if they came? What if the human changed his mind today? The door creaked open. The human stepped outside, his boots crunching on the dirt. He stretched his arms and looked at the rising sun. His face was calm, but his eyes scanned the empty street carefully. He knew what she did not. He knew enemies would not stay silent. The girl sat up quickly, clutching the blanket to her chest. When he returned inside, she whispered, They will come for me. They will come for you too." He set down a small bundle of food on the table, his voice steady, "Then let them come." Her eyes widened. She shook her head. "No, I will go. If I leave, they will not harm you." Her voice trembled with fear and guilt. She could not let the only person who had shown her kindness be punished because of her. The human's eyes hardened. His voice grew firm. "Listen to me. You are not leaving. You are under my protection." Her lips parted. She stared at him, shocked. No one had ever spoken those words for her. Protection was something she had only seen from far away, given to others, never to her. Before she could answer, loud voices echoed outside. The sound of heavy boots and sharp weapons striking the ground filled the air. The girl's body froze, her blood ran cold. The door slammed open, and a group of aliens stormed inside. Their eyes burned with anger. Their leader, a broad alien with scarred skin and cruel eyes, pointed a long blade at the human. "You shame us," he spat. "You feed filth. You keep her alive. You spit on our honor." The girl's heart pounded. She pulled the blanket around herself like a shield. Her voice cracked as she cried, "Please, I will leave. Do not hurt him." But the human stood tall, his back straight. His hand rested calmly near his belt where a blade hung. His eyes never left the leader's. His voice was steady. "She is not filth. She is alive. That alone makes her worth protecting." The room grew heavy with silence. The other aliens snarled, their hands tightening on weapons. The leader sneered, "You are a fool, human. You risk death for garbage." The girl sobbed, her body shaking. She whispered through tears, "Stop, please. I am not worth it." Her voice was desperate. The human turned his head slightly, his eyes meeting hers. For the first time, his voice grew louder, firm as stone, "You are worth it." Her breath caught. The words struck her harder than the hunger, harder than the pain of years past. The tears in her eyes blurred the world. She pressed her hand to her chest. Her heart had never heard such words. The leader snarled, swinging his blade in anger. Then fight us, human. Prove your words with blood. The human's grip tightened on his weapon, his body tensed, but his eyes never showed fear. Instead, he stepped forward, placing himself between the girl and the attackers, his voice carried like iron. If you wish to harm her, you will face me first. The aliens hesitated, their sneers faltered. For all their cruelty, they knew humans carried fire in their spirit, a fire that even the strongest feared. The leader spat, but his voice was less certain now. You protect her today, but tomorrow she will still be filth. You cannot change what she is. The human's eyes flashed, his voice like steel. I already have. The words shook the room, silence fell again. The leader growled in frustration. He wanted to strike, but the calm strength in the human's eyes froze him. Slowly, he lowered his blade, snarling, "This is not finished." With a sharp motion, he turned and stormed out, his men following. The door slammed shut, silence returned, but the air still carried the weight of the threat. The girl collapsed to her knees, her sobs breaking the silence. She cried, "Why? Why would you risk your life? I am nothing." The human knelt in front of her, his voice softer now, yet unshakable. "You are not nothing. You never were. They only made you believe it." Her tears flowed harder. She pressed her face into her hands. His words felt impossible, but they burned like truth. He touched her shoulder gently, not to control her, but to steady her shaking body. "You are safe now," he said quietly. "And as long as I breathe, you will not face them alone." The girl lifted her eyes, her face wet with tears. For the first time, she believed him, not fully, not completely, but enough to let hope spark inside her chest. Outside, the whispers spread quickly through the city. A human had stood against them. A human had called filth worth protecting. Some laughed, some grew angrier, but others began to wonder. And though the danger was not gone, though enemies waited in the shadows, inside the small shelter something had already changed. The starving girl was no longer alone. She had been given protection. She had been given worth. And for the first time, the fire of defiance burned inside her heart, matching the fire she saw in his eyes. The morning after the challenge felt heavy with silence. The girl sat near the fire, clutching the blanket tightly. Her mind still replayed the night before. The angry voices, the flashing blade, the human standing tall like a wall between her and death. Her body trembled at the memory, but deep inside, another feeling began to stir. Hope. The human moved around the room calmly, as if nothing had happened. He placed bread and fruit on the table. His movements were steady, his voice even. "Eat," he said simply. The girl hesitated, her eyes darted to the food, then back to him. "Why do you keep feeding me? Why do you keep standing for me?" She whispered, her voice cracked, filled with doubt. He looked at her, his gaze calm but strong. "Because you deserve to live, because no one should starve, because you are not what they call you." Her throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to say she was nothing, to say she was filth. But the words would not leave her lips, not after last night, not after he had faced blades and threats for her. Slowly, she picked up the bread. The warmth of it filled her hands. Her tears threatened to fall, but she bit them back. She ate in silence, each bite heavy with the weight of change. When she finished, he stood and gestured toward the door. "Come," he said. Her body froze, fear gripped her chest. They will see me," she whispered. Her voice shook. "They will laugh. They will throw things. They will hurt me." The human's eyes narrowed. "Let them see," he replied. His tone was quiet but sharp as steel. She clutched the blanket tighter. Her legs shook, her heart thundered. But when he extended his hand again, steady and open, she could not turn away. With trembling fingers, she placed her hand in his. He pulled her gently to her feet. They stepped out into the light. The streets were alive with whispers. Heads turned, voices rose. Some laughed cruelly. "Look, the human's pet." They jeered, others spat on the ground. "She should have died in the dirt," they growled. The girl's heart shrank. She lowered her eyes, shame burning her cheeks. But the human's grip on her hand tightened, pulling her closer. His voice rang out clear across the street. "She is not filth. She is not trash. She walks with me, and any who call her less must face me first." The words echoed like thunder. The crowd fell silent. Some sneered, but others looked away. Their courage crumbled under the fire in his eyes. The girl gasped softly, her chest tightened. She had never heard anyone speak like that for her. Her hand clung to his desperately, her tears slipped down. But they were not only from fear this time, they were from something new. Pride. They walked through the city, step by step, the jeers still came. But fewer now, the whispers grew quieter. Some even turned to murmurs of awe. The human did not bow his head. He walked tall, and she walked beside him, no longer crawling in dirt. Every step was a battle against her old self, against the voice inside that screamed she was worthless. But with each step, that voice grew weaker, drowned out by his steady presence, by the warmth of his hand. They reached the edge of the city, fields stretching beyond. For the first time, she saw open land without chains or fences. Her chest lifted with the strange weight of freedom. She stopped, her voice trembling. I don't know how to live. I only know hunger. I only know shame. The human turned to her, his gaze calm, his voice steady. Then you will learn, and you will learn not as filth, not as nothing, but as yourself. Her breath caught, her eyes filled with tears. As myself, she whispered. The word felt strange on her tongue. He nodded firmly. Yes, as yourself. She covered her face, sobbing quietly. Her whole body shook. Years of pain spilled out in those tears. But behind the tears was something stronger, a spark that refused to die now. The human stood beside her, not touching, not pushing, only waiting. His presence was enough. His silence was powerful. Finally, she lowered her hands, her eyes red but steady. For the first time in her life, she lifted her chin. Her small frame stood taller than before. They walked on, step by step, the city behind them. The unknown ahead. Danger would still come. Whispers would still follow, enemies would still plot. But the girl was no longer alone. She was no longer filth, no longer trash, no longer the starving shadow in a cruel market. She was someone who had been chosen, someone who had been protected, someone who had been given a chance. And with the human by her side, she dared to believe she belonged. The new beginning had already begun.